This story is a work of fiction, inspired by real events. Names, dates, locations, and identifying details have been changed or dramatized to protect privacy and enhance the narrative. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental or used fictitiously. This content is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only. It does not aim to glorify crime, promote violence, or pass judgment on real individuals. Viewer discretion is advised. Some scenes may contain mature, disturbing, or triggering content. What you are about to watch could have happened anywhere, to anyone. It's inspired by real events. Whispers of truth, buried beneath layers of fiction. We've changed the names, the dates, the locations, but the emotions, the betrayal, the fear, those are real. This story is not meant to accuse, only to reveal, to make you question, who do you really trust? If stories like this keep you thinking, long after they end, hit subscribe, smash like, and drop your theory in the comments. Now watch closely, before the truth disappears again.
What if the person lying next to you every night wasn't who they said they were? What if the love you trusted most was built on a secret that could destroy everything? For years, she lived quietly, smiling in photos, changing towns, changing names. No one questioned her story. No one looked too close. Until one man did. A man who saw the cracks beneath the charm, the moments she slipped, the questions she avoided, the nights she couldn't sleep. He thought he'd found love. Instead, he found something else, something she never meant for anyone to see. And when he finally picked up the phone to tell the truth, everything she had built began to crumble. Stay with us, because what you're about to hear isn't just a story about love gone wrong. It's about how the past never stays buried. And how one secret can turn affection into betrayal, and trust into proof. This is, She Thinks She Got Away With It, until her new boyfriend turns her in. Subscribe, and remember, sometimes the person who claims to love you most is the one holding the key to your undoing. By the time anyone knew the name Kendra Moore, she had already erased her old life. A quiet street in Houston, Texas, a small upstairs apartment above a bakery, and a woman who blended into the rhythm of the city like she'd always belonged there. She was 32, soft-spoken, polite. Her co-workers at the beauty supply store said she was sweet but secretive, friendly enough to smile, but never enough to share. No family photos. No laughter that lasted too long. No trace of where she came from. Her apartment was spotless, not just clean, but deliberate. Every item had a place. Every receipt had a folder. Every morning looked like a performance of normalcy. To anyone else, Kendra was rebuilding. But to those who paid attention, she lived like someone trying to leave no footprints. Then came Jordan Hale, 35, tall, kind-eyed, and unshaken by the quiet. He met her on a rainy afternoon when her car stalled outside his small repair shop. He fixed it for free. She thanked him with coffee. That was all it took. In a world full of noise, they found peace in each other's silence. Jordan liked her calm, her soft voice, her slow laughter. She liked his steadiness, a man who kept his word and asked for nothing more. They built their love in gentle layers, one unspoken promise at a time. But beneath Kendra's soft tone lived a constant hum of fear, a fear she carried like a heartbeat. Some nights she stared out the window, eyes lost in the dark, whispering to herself as if bargaining with ghosts. And though Jordan never asked what haunted her, he could feel it pressing between them, a secret shaped like something too heavy to name. To everyone else, she was just another woman starting fresh. To herself, she was still Kendra Miles, and her second life had already begun to tremble. For the first time in years, Kendra felt safe enough to breathe. Jordan Hale wasn't a man of drama. He was a man of rhythm, work, dinner, sleep, repeat. He had scars on his hands from fixing other people's mistakes, and eyes that carried warmth instead of judgment. He made her breakfast, called her baby girl, and didn't mind when she went quiet. He never asked why she kept a second phone she never used, or why she froze at the sound of police sirens. He thought she'd been hurt before, maybe abused, maybe betrayed. And in a way, he was right. Kendra loved him with the kind of tenderness that comes from guilt. Every smile she gave him was a debt repaid. Every touch was an apology to someone who would never feel again. Still, they were good together. Late-night movies, Sunday drives, shared playlists. Two ordinary people building something that felt real. Neighbors described them as perfect. But perfect is only what you see before something breaks. Sometimes, when Jordan turned to kiss her goodnight, she flinched before relaxing. When he'd say, "You can tell me anything," she'd nod, then change the subject. There were stories she never finished, timelines that didn't match, and a strange nervousness when he mentioned meeting her family. He assumed she'd lost them. He never imagined she'd buried something else. Still, he stayed. Love makes people overlook the quiet inconsistencies. It makes them see peace where there's only performance. But peace built on lies always ends in noise. And Kendra's silence was starting to crack. It began with a photo, a single image tucked inside a small envelope in her nightstand. Jordan wasn't snooping. He was searching for a charger. But when he saw it, something inside him paused. A younger Kendra stood beside a man he'd never met, smiling, leaning close, her hand on his chest. On the back of the photo, one name was written in ink, DeAndre. When Kendra walked in and saw him holding it, she froze. Her voice was steady, but her eyes weren't. She said it was an ex, someone who's gone. Then she took the photo, folded it, and hid it again. Jordan let it go, but his thoughts didn't. That night, she cried in her sleep. The next morning, she deleted her browser history, changed her passwords, and left for work 2 hours early. Days later, while working at the shop, Jordan's coworker played a true crime podcast. The episode covered a cold case out of Atlanta. A man named DeAndre Cole, 33, vanished after an argument with his girlfriend, who was never found. The description matched her. The voice in the background described a young woman named Kendra Miles. Jordan's chest went hollow. He paused the podcast and stared at the photo in his memory. The same smile. The same eyes. The same woman. He didn't confront her. He studied her, quietly, carefully, terrified of what he might confirm. He watched how she avoided mirrors, how she winced at certain names, how her hands shook when folding laundry. Love turned into observation. And observation turned into dread. By the end of the week, Jordan had started keeping notes. He didn't know it yet, but he wasn't just watching a woman he loved. He was watching a lie unravel itself, one tremor at a time. While Jordan pieced together fragments, hundreds of miles away, Detective Ray Coleman was opening a file he could never forget. DeAndre Cole, missing, 2016. The case had haunted him like an unfinished prayer. Back then, Coleman had walked through a house that smelled of bleach and silence. He'd seen the woman who opened the door, calm, pretty, and too composed. She said her boyfriend left after an argument. There had been no signs of a struggle, no witnesses, and no body. When Leeds died, so did the case. But Coleman never really closed it. He'd promised DeAndre's mother he wouldn't stop until she had an answer. In late 2021, a new facial recognition system flagged a match, a woman in Texas renewing a driver's license under a new last name. The match score, 98.4%. The system didn't lie. Houston police were briefed. Surveillance was placed. From the outside, she looked harmless, quiet job, good record, stable boyfriend. But Coleman had seen that look before. He called it the calm of someone who knows what they did, and learned to smile through it. Back in Houston, Kendra felt it, not knowledge, but instinct. The sense of being watched returned. Phone calls that ended in silence. Cars parked too long near her building. She started glancing over her shoulder, double-bolting doors, and drinking more than usual. Jordan saw her spiraling, thought it was trauma. He didn't realize it was history clawing its way back. That week, she packed a bag but never left. Because running twice meant admitting you'd been running at all. The story she had buried 5 years ago was finally surfacing. And in the silence of her Houston apartment, Kendra Miles could hear it breathing again. Atlanta, 2016. A summer night heavy with heat and shouting. DeAndre Cole, 33, a man who loved control more than comfort, stood toe-to-toe with Kendra in their small kitchen. He'd called her a liar, accused her of stealing money from his account. It wasn't the first fight, but it was the last one that drew blood. Kendra had loved him once, before the bruises, before the humiliation of being told she'd be nothing without him. That night, she decided to be something else. One shove. One terrible sound as his head struck the edge of the table. Then stillness. Panic moved faster than grief. She pressed her fingers to his pulse, waited for a beat that never came. The silence felt endless, stretching between heartbeat and confession. Fear became logic. Logic became survival. By dawn, she'd scrubbed the floor, packed a suitcase, and written a story she would tell herself for years. It was an accident. He forced my hand. She loaded her car, drove until the sun came up, and somewhere on the highway between Atlanta and Houston, Kendra Miles disappeared. By the time the world looked for her, Kendra Moore had already been born. But guilt is the only thing you can't bury. It travels light, fits in the smallest bag, and whispers every time you start to feel safe. Jordan's curiosity had turned to quiet investigation. He searched names, pieced timelines, and finally played the full podcast episode he had paused weeks earlier. Every word was a mirror held up to the woman sleeping beside him. He stopped sleeping. He stopped eating. He started thinking about DeAndre's mother, her trembling voice on the recording, begging anyone with information to come forward. Jordan knew he couldn't be another person who stayed silent. One evening, he came home early. Kendra sat at the table, a half-empty glass of wine, her hands trembling. She had found his phone, open to his notes, the podcast link, the picture of her under both names. Her eyes met his. No denial. No excuses. Only exhaustion. She spoke first. Not in anger, but surrender. She told him everything, the fight, the fear, the blood that wouldn't wash away. She said she tried to forget, to build a life that could silence what she'd done. But silence, she realized, is just another kind of noise. When she finished, she begged him not to tell. Said she couldn't survive prison. Said she finally felt alive again. Jordan listened in stillness, 1,000 thoughts clawing at his chest. That night he sat in his car for hours, watching the city lights blur through his windshield. He thought about love, and about the line where mercy ends and justice begins. By midnight, he made his choice. He called Detective Coleman. His voice shook as he explained who he was, who she was, and what she had confessed. Coleman said nothing at first, just the sound of paper rustling, a case file opening after 5 silent years. Then 3 words that sealed everything. We'll take it from here. The raid came quietly, just before sunrise. Police cruisers without sirens, unmarked cars sliding to the curb like shadows. Inside, Kendra slept for the last time as a free woman. The knock was soft but final. When she opened the door, red and blue lights flickered across her face. Behind the officers, she saw Jordan standing on the sidewalk, arms crossed, head bowed, tears already falling. She didn't scream. Didn't plead. She only whispered, "You promised me peace." Then she turned, placed her wrists together, and let the cuffs close. The neighbors gathered as she was led down the steps, some shocked, some curious, all whispering the same thing, "She seemed so nice." At headquarters, Detective Coleman waited. Time had taken his hair and softened his eyes, but not his purpose. He watched her sit down across from him, the same woman from that Atlanta doorway, still composed, still dangerous in her calm. He slid the old photo across the table. She stared at it for a long time, then nodded once. And in that nod, 5 years of lies came undone. Kendra Miles was charged with manslaughter and tampering with evidence. The remains of DeAndre Cole were recovered weeks later in a wooded area outside Atlanta. Buried shallow, wrapped in the same bedsheet she had once ironed. When the news broke, the city called it justice. But for those who had loved her, or thought they did, it felt more like a funeral for the truth. The trial was quiet. No theatrics, no tears for the cameras. Kendra Miles stood before the court, her hair pulled back, her eyes steady. The prosecutor spoke of control, concealment, and deception. The defense spoke of trauma, abuse, and fear. Neither could fully describe the reality of what had lived inside her for half a decade. When the verdict came, guilty, Kendra didn't flinch. 25 years in a Georgia correctional facility. Her only statement. I just wanted to be someone new. Jordan Hale didn't attend the sentencing. He had already left Houston, closed his garage, and vanished into the background of another town. Friends said he hardly spoke anymore, that he still kept her photo in a box he never opened. Detective Coleman retired that winter. He visited DeAndre's mother one last time, carrying the ring recovered from the burial site. She wept, not because justice had come, but because waiting was finally over. Kendra Miles began her sentence quietly. No interviews. No appeals. Just long days, long nights, and the sound of a locked door echoing the life she once tried to escape. In the end, it wasn't fingerprints or cameras that caught her. It was love, the one thing she thought would save her. Kendra Miles believed new cities meant new beginnings, that changing her name could change her soul. But guilt doesn't care about names. It waits in reflections, in laughter that ends too quickly, in every moment that feels too calm to be real. Jordan Hale believed love could heal what he didn't understand. He was wrong. Love didn't heal her, it revealed her. And when he chose truth over silence, he became both her salvation and her sentence. Detective Coleman once said, "Some cases never sleep, they just wait for the right dream to wake them." Maybe that's true for people too. Because no matter how far you run, the truth follows. It moves slower than guilt, but it never loses the trail. Kendra Miles thought she got away with it. But in the end, it was her own heart, the one she tried to love again, that turned her in.